It's Jai452 here again inside the closet of cosplay. Will we ever get out? Probably not. My special guest this week is none other than Iona.
Hi,
Hi, Iona. How are you today?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. So we're just going to jump right in there at the deep end, and I'm going to ask you, when did you first start cosplaying?
I first started cosplaying 3 years ago.
Hmm.
3 years ago, for Glasgow MCM Comic Con. That's when I first started.
Awesome. Do you remember what your first costume was?
It was my own version of Harley Quinn,
Mm,
first cosplay. So
awesome.
that's why
Do you still have that first cosplay?
I do actually. What it was, I just bought two. I bought a red jumper, a black jumper, a red pair of like joggies, and a black pair, and just sewed them together. And like I cropped the jumper and everything, so I just worked like that with some boots. It was good. I like that cosplay.
Awesome. Um, who or what inspired you to cosplay?
Well, I think my family's always been quite a geeky family. My sister went with her friends the previous year, and this year my brother was going with some of his friends.
Hmm.
So we both decided that we'd go together. It's actually quite a funny story because my brother went as the Joker and I went as Harley, but we didn't realise that we both went as our favourite characters, and lots of people thought we were a couple. But yeah,
Awesome. Um, is there any is anyone in particular outside your family that inspires you to cosplay, or any famous kind of famous cosplayer or cosplayer in general that you know that kind of just pushes you to reach those kind of like high limits?
I really like Jessica Negri's
Hmm.
stuff. She's really good, so I follow her on a lot of social media, and she tends to put up a lot of cosplays quite often. So she's
Awesome.
a real inspiration.
Um, what has been the most challenging cosplay that you've ever done, both from the making of the costume and from the acting side of it? Because not a lot of people know this, but there is a little bit of acting involved in cosplay, whether it be like how a character stands, how they talk, how they even just interact with people or move. So let's talk about the acting side first. Like, what's been the most challenging cosplay to date for you from an acting point of view?
I think for me, for acting, is a lot of obviously I started off doing Harley, and then I moved on to Poison Ivy, and I feel like Poison Ivy suits my personality more.
Hmm.
So the actual real hardest acting would probably be with Harley, especially because she's got a certain way that she presents herself, a certain way that she talks, um, and she's really hyper, she's really bubbly. So it's just trying to put your head into somebody else's mindset and then trying to figure out where to go from there.
Okay. So what has been the most challenging cosplay that you've done to date from the costume side?
Well, costumes for me aren't, they're not exactly the trickiest. Um, I tend to go for simples better. So, like my Ivy costume is isn't much. It's two pieces just worn, and then I use a lot of paint.
Hmm.
I like to paint, so I do like vines and stuff painted on me instead of making stuff like that. Um, I tend to also help to paint other people as well. So if you've seen my brother's Jared Little Joker, that would be myself and Tegan that have in fact painted him. That's not anything else
Right.
apart from
Yeah.
just paint.
That was one thing that I was kind of hoping you'd bring up because I have seen those pictures and they're absolutely amazing. When I seen them, I was looking at them and going, did he have that professionally done? Was there like
No.
professional makeup artists that come in and done that? And it wasn't until our interview with Tegan that she mentioned that it was yourself and her who did that, and I was like, that's fantastic.
Yeah, we had a lot of people asking if they were like fake tattoos that we had bought and then stuck on.
Hmm.
But no, I take a lot of pride in Blair's Jared Little Joker because it didn't actually the first time we tried it we did it pretty well, but then on and on it just kept getting better and better as new shots of Jared Leto's Joker came out. We added more to it. It was just it's just a real joy to do, and the amount of great feedback we get back from it is just phenomenal.
I know. Um, I won't lie to you. At one point, after seeing those particular pictures and given the second cosplay that I did at Film and Comic Con, I was like, I need people like Tegan and Blair, Tegan and Iona to be here because
Yeah.
I was doing Ivy and the makeup that I had done was it was good, but I was like, I need it to be that next level kind of
Uh-huh.
thing.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's why I was kind of like, I wish I had an Iona or a Tegan here to help me out. Maybe
If
we'll
you
get
ever
you in the
need any
future.
help with any paint type of thing, we're happy to do it.
I might say to you about a cosplay that I'm planning for next year
Right, okay.
after the interview, and it will be an interesting one for you.
Oh.
Um, Maybe challenging as well. Maybe not, I don't know. Um,
Vegan actually want to do one of my other brothers up as Killer Croc.
oh wow.
Quite excited to hopefully get on that.
Well, you should check out the interview that I did with Titan Cosplay
Hmm.
because he does Killer Croc and his Killer Croc is phenomenal. Like
Yeah,
insanely phenomenal. You know, he's like one of those American cosplayers that you look at the actual cosplay and you think, is that a rubber mask? And when you ask them, they're like, no, it's mostly makeup. You
a
know.
lot of what I like about cosplayers is a lot of cosplayers don't tend to just go for um like buying it,
Hmm.
like buying masks. A lot of cosplayers are actually really artistic, and everybody likes to like make something, whether it be making your costume, whether it be just making it like something like a necklace that you wear, whether it be painting, or whether it be actually creating the facial shape. I remember at one point, our friend Alan, he wanted to do Thanos,
Hmm.
so Tegan actually made the chin and stuck the chin on him, and it's always just fun to try and push yourself to that point of creativity.
It certainly is. I mean, I was pushing my limits today because um, there was something that I was working on there before we started this interview, and unfortunately, because it's wet,
Uh-huh.
I can't actually show it off on camera. Um, but I've been working on a new jacket because I've done my version of a Suicide Squad Harley before,
Hmm.
and I wasn't happy with the jacket fully when I looked at it, and I started painting it, but the paint didn't really take
Right, okay.
to the top because the top was originally this kind of orangey red color, and because I was adding blue to it, the paint the original color was basically shining through. So I had to start over again, and I've been working with fabric paints this time, and I'm
Hmm.
hopeful that
Fingers.
the blue will not be as faint as like the previous stuff that I was using. But because it was a white t-shirt to begin with, it shouldn't be as bad. So
Should be
fingers
okay.
crossed. Um, and I will admit this on camera because I know that this is going to be after I've been at my event. My aunt and me actually stitched in some kind of like gold plated stuff for the shoulders, and I made the biggest mistake ever. I
Really.
kinda like got blue paint on some of the gold.
I'm sure
So
it won't be visible.
I'm hoping that it's not, but we'll see how it turns out. I mean, I'll try and clean it up a bit beforehand. But I've still
Yeah.
got a complete other side to do, so maybe if I get to that point, I can just get red on that particular side, and then it will look even. Totally, totally look even. Um, so my next question for you is, in your opinion, what is the most difficult thing or character to cosplay as, both from an acting point of view and from a cosplay point of view?
Well, for
What?
acting, I think it really just depends on the person,
Hmm.
because obviously certain people just suit certain characters. So, as I said, I find it quite difficult to act as Harley, whereas Tegan, on the other hand, is phenomenal at Harley because she's just got it. It's like part of her personality.
Hmm.
Whereas I find Poison Ivy quite easy. And I think it really just depends on the person for that question. Because it is all about, like, I know I match characters that I think are close to my personality. Like, I've done Harley, I've done Poison Ivy, I've done Zatanna, I've done quite a few different people. And there's others that I want to do in the future that I specifically choose people who I think I can relate to in a certain way, because if I don't have a relation, then I don't know how I would actually bring the character to life.
Yeah. And
Um,
in your opinion, what is something that you would not want to do in terms of a cosplay?
Not want to do.
Hmm. Or is there, when it comes time for you to choose a character, do you just think, okay, no limitations?
Um, I don't have like a cut off point.
Hmm.
Um, I guess I'm for me, I'm quite I like DC, I like Marvel. I've never really looked much into anime or anything like that, so I tend to stick with uh, like superhero movies or and comics and stuff. It wasn't actually until the start of this year that I first did a hero instead of a villain. I used to be strictly villains, so but I am opening up a lot more.
Awesome. Is there any particular character that you wouldn't want to do?
Character. I would I've kind of put Harley to the side because a lot of people are doing Harley. Um, I like being original. I like being quite different. So I like thinking outside of the box. Hopefully, I'm thinking it looking into Hawk Girl next.
Hmm.
So you don't see what I like to do is when I'm at Comic Cons, I like to look around and I like to see who I like, who's not there, and then I'll do them, or if there's people there who I do really love, like you see quite a few Poison Ivies, but I don't think anybody does Poison Ivy the same way I do Poison Ivy.
Hmm.
So I just like to be a bit different.
Um, is there any type of cosplay? Because there's a few different types of cosplays that you can do. There's the gender bent cosplay, like switching the gender of an intended character, or there's your basic kind of fabric, and then there's your armored cosplay. Out of those three types, what is one of them that you think, oh, I have no idea how I would pull that off?
Probably, is it armored cosplay?
Hmm.
Um, Probably that, to be honest, because I've actually done a gender bent cosplay. When the Killing Joke came out, I actually did a female Jared Leto Joko.
Hmm.
Jared Leto Joko? What? Jared Leto. So I did that. So gender bent's not really an issue for me. What was the middle one?
Just your kind of like basic
Just basic.
cosplay, so your like fabrics and
Yeah,
silks
that
and
that
all the rest.
that's all good to me. Like there's been a few things that I see that I want to really go for, that will use a lot of, it'll take a lot of time, it'll take a lot of effort that I just think would be amazing if you actually get into it.
Awesome. Um, so there are two types of Comic Cons that we can go to here in the UK. There are your big ones, so your ones which are your NCMs, your Film and Comic Cons, and your whatever else is, And then there's the smaller, more local ones that happen, say, every 2 months or something. Okay?
Mhm.
Which out of the two do you prefer going to, or do you like a bit of a blend of the two?
Well, what I like, well, I've only ever actually been to three Comic Cons. I've been to MCM, I've been to Edinburgh, and then I've been to Capital.
Hmm.
So they're the ones I tend to go to because um, they're the ones where I think a lot of people go for it, um, and I'm quite interested in seeing everything that happens. I quite like seeing all the different people, all their interpretations of everybody. I don't think I wouldn't say I've ever been to a small Comic Con. I think Capital was pretty small, but it was really good. Um, I love them all. It's it's pretty phenomenal, and I like to think that when there's tons of people in one place, all celebrating what they love and what they're passionate about. Like if you go into a corridor in a Comic Con, then you'll see people acting out different scenes, and I just think it's just amazing. It's a great atmosphere.
Awesome. Um, so when you're at a Comic Con or cosplay event, what is the one thing that you're most excited for? And the one thing that either you used to find most nerve-wracking or still kind of do?
The thing I'm most excited for is probably how how people react to my cosplay.
Hmm.
Because obviously I always go with my group, and my group are all into it. We all go for it, um, and we usually always get good reactions. So I always get really excited about that. When I do a new cosplay, that's always when I get nervous because certain people know me as Poison Ivy, um, and if I turn up in a different cosplay, they just I just get a bit nervous that they're not going to take to me the same way.
Hmm.
But so far it's always worked out fine.
Um, okay, so that kind of covers both your excitement and nervousness for that one. Um, when you've been at these Comic Con events or cosplay events, let's call them, there is a thing called the cosplay competition, or if you're over in America watching the it's called the cosplay competition or the cosplay masquerade.
Hmm.
Have you ever entered into any of these types of competitions? And if so, did you win anything?
I personally am not. I've never put myself in for one. I think it was at Edinburgh. My group put us in for a group one.
Hmm.
Um, we didn't actually win that, but there was a lot of people there that were phenomenal and that had proper spent tons of time and they were so impressive. So that was understandable. Um, Blair and Tegan, however, they won their gender bent Joker and Harley and Dunfermline.
Oh,
So that's basically that. I don't tend to enter into the competitions. I
you
get too
should.
nervous about that.
You should. Um, what do you think feels? What do you feel? Sorry. Try the remix on that one. What do you feel is the kind of best thing when you're cosplaying at one of these events? Like, what is something that you um like? If you're doing an event solo, what is something that you feel would be a great payoff at that? Like,
Um,
in terms of your cosplay.
when you get see, one of the best things is when you're getting fully accepted and somebody comes up to you and asks to take a photo of you. I I love it. I think um, just that it makes you really happy. I mean, especially when you've put so much effort into it, and then when like even if one person did it, then it just gives you that really nice feeling that you've actually worked for something and you've actually succeeded. Somebody else can see that,
Hmm.
and I just think that's really amazing. It's really something to look forward to.
Now, and I want to ask this one because it's a kind of interesting question. Um, do you do the same thing I do when I go to a big Comic Con event? Do you first walk the floor minus a costume and just get to know where everything is and kind of map out the building in a sense, and then go off and get changed and then do the same circuit again, but that time in costume?
I've actually never done that. Um,
Okay.
I think because obviously we go as a group. The past few times I've went, I've had to paint quite a lot of people. So we, my group are usually we usually go for the priority passes as well, so that you get in that wee
That
bit
little
early.
bit early, yeah.
Um, so we tend to do that, and I'm usually up really early anyway because I need to paint people, and it takes quite a lot of time. So I think if I did that, I'd probably miss half of the con. But it is something that I have been um, interested in seeing what changes.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Because for me, when I went this past year to Film and Comic Con in Glasgow,
Mhm.
um, what I did was, right, I knew the building because it was in the same building as last year, but I wanted to do like a circuit out of costume so that I could say, right, if push came to shove and we couldn't film at the Funko Pop stand, we
Mhm.
could easily film up on the kind of raftery part.
Mhm.
Well, not the rafter part, but the seating part, and point down to it from this angle so that the camera could see it. But I think that's because like I went through like my tenure at college as a media studies student, so I'm natural in that respect. So I when I go somewhere, I want to see the best locations for filming
Uh-huh.
and where you can't film. So
Yeah.
it's it's very rare that I would go in costume to a place. You know, it'd be like I'll partially be in costume, but not fully in costume until I've seen the location.
And
Um,
about
Sorry, what?
I said and seen what it's about.
Exactly, because like you'll know yourself that when you're in costume, you don't always get the same amount of time to like stand and shot. You know.
No, you don't really. I guess when you're in costume, a lot of people do want to speak to you, do want to take photos with you. So it does take a lot of time to walk from one side of a room to the other. But
Exactly.
I do think it's worth it. It's really good. But I might look into doing that at some point.
It's always a good idea to like it's not just like a filming standpoint from my point of view, but it's something that I would advise anyone to do, you know,
Yeah,
because
give you a wee bit of time.
yeah, like if you have that little bit of time, or even if you don't have that little bit of time, still get to know the layout of the building
Hmm.
because you don't know when there could be a fire, like touch wood, you know, that there's never a fire at an event that anybody goes to, but if there isn't an emergency, you at least then know where you can get out if you need to.
Hmm.
Um, and I always feel that that's a very good thing to do, and I always advise everybody to do that. You know, like make sure you know where you're going and you know the layout of the building, even if it's a building that you've been going to for 5 years or something. Just get to know the place. You know. Um, in your opinion, what are the best and the worst things that a new cosplayer can do when they're getting ready to go to a cosplay event? So let's start with the best things that they can do.
Best things they can do when they're getting ready.
Hmm.
Best thing is to just chill out, just take your time, just actually relax, actually have fun with doing it. Um, because I always find that when you're in a good mood, put some music on. You're about to go and have fun. It's like getting ready for a party. You wouldn't sit there in the dark and put your makeup on.
No.
Um, so I always like to have a wee bit of fun. I think on the other hand, the worst part is sitting there trying to get everything to perfection. Because obviously you want everything to be perfect, you want it to be the way it looks. Um, but there's just certain things like obviously when we were painting Blair's Jared Little Joker, everything was not the exact same as what it was in the actual real thing. But
Hmm.
we're not the actual people who paint him, so it's not going to be. So it's just that type of thing that you need to put your own spin on. Well, not your own spin. You need to do what you can. You can't just aim for perfection because every overall it's your own take on it.
Hmm.
It's not somebody else's. It's yours. So I think if you just sit there and like tense up and try and make something so perfect, you're just gonna lose the fun of it.
Yeah. We will be right back, guys. Um, and we're back. And I just screwed up my finger movement there. Um, so my next question for you has to be about age differences within the cosplay community. When I first started cosplaying, I didn't know much about what age groups did it. I had this idea in my head, and any kind of cosplay stuff that I seen was predominantly from America. So
Hmm.
you had your group cosplays, which was a bunch of people. You had your mums and dads with babies and children doing cosplays, which was a family unit. But whenever I looked at any particular group of cosplayers, I noticed there was a specific kind of like age group, and that was somewhere between early teens to maybe mid 30s. And
Uh-huh.
I thought, that's the age group. That is predominantly the age group that cosplays. And I was so shocked that when I went to my first ever Comic Con that it wasn't that. It was like a huge range of people.
Massive
You
range.
know,
It's
vast range. Like somewhere from babies that were born like a month ago to grannies and granddads that will probably pass on the next month, kind of thing. Oh, hello. um, that's okay. Um, little kitty cat there comes in. Um, so like myself, did you have any particular thoughts on different age groups within cosplay? Did you think it was going to be predominantly one set of age group versus a kind of another kind of thing? Or what was your...
um well actually the first people I saw properly going to a Comic Con, I didn't know they were um a real thing, was actually my sister and her friends.
Mhm.
So and her friend group is a wide variety of ranges anyway. So I didn't actually think it was going to be. I didn't think there was going to be as many young people as I saw when I got there. Um, I thought it was going to be more of like an adult thing, but when I got there, it was crazy at the actual range. There was, I mean, when I first started, I think I was 15. So there was a lot of people my age. There was a lot of people older. There's tons of people younger. There's just anybody for. I don't think there's an age limit on cosplay.
Awesome.
So
Um, so my next question concerning age groups in cosplay. There are people out there in that big bad world, and sorry, there are people out there in that big bad world that seem to think um, that parents shouldn't dress up their children and take them along to Comic Cons that are like 6 to 7 hours, you know. Um, and they say, "Oh, shame on the parents for doing this, like bad parent." Um, what are your viewpoints on that? Do you think that's something that people should be kind of like doing, or do you think, no, if like a child wants to dress up, then that's fine, so long as the child's not kicking and screaming and wanting to go home, you know?
Exactly. It's the latter. It's like dressing up. You dress up on Halloween. You take your kids out on Halloween to go get candy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really see the difference between Halloween and a Comic Con. Um, I've seen a lot of parents with their kids who come and they might not even stay for the whole time. They come for a bit and then as soon as the kids get tired or anything or stroppy, then they just go.
Hmm.
There's there's no limit. You don't need to stay there for the whole time, and I don't see what's wrong with with kids dressing up and coming. I don't see what's wrong with parents bringing their children. I actually quite like it. Every now and then I see a wee baby Ewok walking by and I get really excited.
You would have been absolutely in love with the little baby that I seen recently. Um, I was doing the Film and Comic Con one just there in October, I want to say.
Hmm.
Um, and Sean Astin was there. So there was a lot of people dressed up like characters from The Lord of the Rings. In
Hmm.
fact, if you look on my Instagram, there are at least two pictures of a man and a woman together. And when I
Uh-huh.
first seen them, I thought, oh my God, they're like Renaissance people. And it didn't dawn on me, I was kind of slow on the uptake that day. And I walked around the corner and I seen Sean Astin walk back and said, they're not Renaissance people, they're Aragon and Arwen. And I was like, okay, do you guys mind if I take a picture of them? Several, actually. And they're like, yeah, sure, off you go. Later on in the day, in fact, earlier in the day, I noticed this little baby being carried around. This little baby could have only have been 2 months, so very, very tiny. And this baby was actually in costume. The mum had dressed them up like a tiny little hobbit. I know, right?
So cute.
And the worst of it, I didn't get any pictures of that baby. And not only that, but me and every other cosplayer that went into the masquerade that day was competing against that baby.
That baby won, didn't it?
No,
Did
didn't
it not win?
didn't didn't win, didn't even get into the top three, but I was so like normally I would look at other cosplayers and be rather intimidated by what they're wearing, you know.
Uh-huh.
I was intimidated by a 2 month old baby. I was like, how am I supposed to compete with that? You
I
know?
would I would have been like, nope, the baby can win.
Yeah,
See y'all later.
I'll just go over and talk to Sean Astin and feel good about myself. But yeah, I was like, wow, that is so great that the mum has decided, yeah, my child is going to be a cosplayer, whether they like it or not. Um, and when I got the opportunity to have 2 seconds with Sean Astin, I asked him, did you see the little baby? And he's like, no. I was like, there's a little baby wandering, or there was a little baby wandering around today dressed like a hobbit. And he's like, oh my God,
Find the baby.
find that baby. I must see him. Bring this baby to me. But yeah, it's just so shocked. Equally on the other end of the spectrum, do you think there is an age where you should stop cosplaying?
No.
No?
Um, I I don't think there is. I think if you enjoy it, then you might as well. I mean, there's how many actors are you've got so many famous actors who um are quite old now as well, and they're still going acting. So I don't see why people should stop cosplaying. Um, I think cosplay it's not just something you do. It's something that it's like a job
Hmm.
that you enjoy. So if you want to retire, then you can. But if you don't want to, then why? What's what's wrong with that? I'm gonna keep going.
Um, do you tend to think the same way I do. Like, we're very lucky being over here in the UK because once you reach a certain age, you can transition from being your like comic book characters into some of your Doctor Who characters and some of your Game of Thrones characters and other odds and ends, you know.
They're available to anybody of all ages.
Yeah, yeah,
So
but there are certain characters I would say, and like if you don't have the makeup skills to make yourself look like 100 years old or whatever, um, you can actually use your age to your advantage at that point. Like
like,
those particular characters where you can use, your age to your advantage, or
part of
vice
your
versa.
costume.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so that's why I feel we're very lucky when we live in the UK and we have things like Doctor Who in particular, where we can go, oh, well, I'm the do age, and that doctor was the do age. So,
Yeah, I'll be him.
exactly. Or a Dalek. I don't know. Um,
Come as a robot, I'll be fine.
yeah, nobody will know it's me. Um, so, my next question, and this one's a very big one, um, is props. Now, for me, props fall into well, yeah, two categories and then three subcategories.
Hmm.
So my two categories are the prop will come with me to a Comic Con and the prop will go with me to a photo shoot. And then the subcategories are, oh my god, this prop is so huge it's breaking my back carrying it or even just holding it.
Hmm.
This prop is mildly annoying me because it's medium size. And oh, this prop is so awesome because it's so small and can easily fit in my pocket. You know, out of those props, which one are you, like those three different sizes, which one are you more inclined to take to something like a photo shoot or a Comic Con?
Well, for a photo shoot, I always think bigger's better
Hmm.
because able to be seen more. But for a Comic Con, I get tired.
We all
So
do.
I
You're not alone.
know. So if it's small and can fit in my pocket, that'd be fantastic.
What about the medium size props? Like, if you're, a lot of people say to me, it really depends on the character that they're cosplaying as, and yes, that does have a lot to do with it. I think you're the only person who's kind of answered that question the way I'd hoped they would. Um, but what about the medium-sized props? Where would you put that? Would you put it with a photo shoot, or would you put it at a Comic Con event?
I guess it depends on the character, obviously, because um, there's certain sized props that I would take a prop to a Comic Con.
Mhm.
I've got friends who do stalls at Comic Con, so I just put it with them, and then I'm like, I'll come get that when I want it again. Um, it just really depends on the character for me. A lot of times I don't do characters even with props, just because I just don't know. just it just happens.
Um, so while we're still on the subject of props, a lot of people tend to do three things when it comes to props. They either make them from scratch, they buy them in, like ready-made, or they buy in pieces of materials that already kind of look like what they want and then customize them. Which out of the three are you more inclined to do? Are you inclined to make a prop from scratch, buy one, or buy them and then customize it?
Well, I've actually only ever used one prop, and it was a baseball bat that I've had for a long time now. So that was just quite easy for me. It was already in my house, could just take it along. I've always liked the idea of being able to make your own props, or even buying a prop and then painting it the way it's supposed to be.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not really. I always find that if you go to buy something that's already been completely done, unless you're willing to spend quite a lot of money on it, then it's not the way you want it.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I find anyway.
I'm in complete agreement with you there, and I'm pretty sure a lot of other people will be as well. Um, it is very difficult to get a particular prop,
Hmm.
especially if you're buying it, and then what you need to do there, guys, is you need to factor in how much the rest of your cosplay is going to cost you as well. Because a lot of these props that myself and Iona are talking about, we're not saying that they're cheap. We're talking upwards of £200 to £100, and that would be like, I don't know, whatever the equivalency exchange rate currently is for America in dollars and wherever else in the world you are, you know. Um, these props, while they're outstandingly amazing, are extremely expensive, you know. Um, so one of the other things I wanted to ask you, and this is where we get to have a little bit of fun. What are the some of the funniest things that happened to you while either at a Comic Con or in costume that you've seen that you just kind of
Um, well, this is one that I've heard of. That all my friends were all there. I was not there. I had to work, and I was gutted about it. But when I saw the video and everything, it was phenomenal. Um, at MCM Comic Con this year, one of my friends actually proposed to the other.
I know who you're talking about, and we can name and shame them if you want because they've
Yep,
already done interviews.
James and B.
Yeah,
Yep. So when I heard about that and I saw the photos and saw the video, I got quite emotional. It looked amazing. So that's not a funny one. That's just a oh,
yep.
just to be honest,
It's the feelings one. The feelings one.
oh, gets you right in there.
Yeah, gets you in the feels.
Um, I'm just having a wee think. I remember last year there was a wee dog at a Comic Con, with this amazing two kids. They were there with their parents, and these two kids had come as Harley and Joker, and they were phenomenal. They looked adorable. But this wee dog was I loved it so much. It wasn't doing anything. It just kept coming to me, and like I sat down, and it like knocked me over, uh, and it was just so cute. Like I loved it. Um, I always find it funny when you realize when somebody asks you to take a photo, and then you find it, and they're actually quite like famous or something. Um, me and my brother were looking at stalls as he was dressed as Jared Leto Joker, and this guy came up to him and asked to take a photo of him, and obviously he was like, yeah, sure. And then a couple of days later, I found the photo on Instagram, and this guy had 50,000 followers, and I was like, oh my god. And it turned out he was like a really famous comic designer, comic illustrator, and I was like, well, my brother is now on his Instagram. It's just quite funny sometimes. You're like, okay.
That's scary. Um, so my next question for you is, what opportunities has cosplaying opened up for you?
Well, I think a lot of it's quite a good confidence builder as well. So you it makes me feel better about myself. Um, Opportunities. Um, Actually, I've not had many myself. I've not been to anything like properly recently, but it's opened a lot of opportunities for um, quite a few of my friends, like Tegan and Blair. They're doing filming right now for a short film, which is obviously amazing. Tegan's had quite a few like photo shoots, um, as has many people that I know. It's just a lot of people find cosplay quite intriguing, so they tend to ask you if you will come as a certain character. My brother was actually invited to go all the way down to a charity event in England, to do a Comic-Con. And he was asked to specifically come as Jared Leto Joker, which I thought was amazing.
I bet you he was
But
saying that I'll need to bring my sister with me to do all my makeup.
that was literally it. He asked if he could bring Tegan and myself down, and they already had our characters. And it was also I was working, so
Okay.
he ended up not going. But I think just being asked is it's
It's
pretty
yeah,
amazing.
it's a huge privilege.
Hmm.
Um, so that's really cool that you've had the opportunity to do multiple things. Would there be anything in particular that you yourself would like to get out of cosplay?
Um, to be honest, to me, cosplay is quite like I enjoy doing it. I don't enjoy do it to get anything out of it. Um, I like doing it for the fun of it. Um, it's just a really enjoyable thing. I know a lot of people do it and then they like doing it, so they want to do things more with it. They want to go to photo shoots. They want to um, do all of this stuff. Like I've got a friend who does Spider-Man, and he has to be hands down one of the best Spider-Man men that I've ever seen. He's just got it nailed, and he recently did this photo shoot, and you see some of the photos, and you're like, "Holy crap, that is phenomenal!" Um,
Um,
so it's just things like that, and sometimes I tend to think it's quite. Oh, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
it's hard to describe, yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. Um, so before we kind of close up, I want to ask you just a little bit about the body painting that you do, because I do know that you do quite a bit of it. On average, how long does that process kind of take? Like let's go from the Jared Leto Joker that you did with Blair to the Poison Ivy that you've done before as well. So on average, how long does that kind of take?
Well, poison ivy doesn't take too long. I don't do too much with poison ivy. It's basically I just use some green paint. I do some vines and stuff on my legs and my arms, up my chest, and a wee bit on my face. That doesn't take long. It takes about 20 minutes, if that. And I like paint my hair, but that takes a wee bit longer, a bit more time. Um, but with Jared Little Joker, I think it's got quicker the more we've done it. But I think the first time we properly showed it at MCM, not this year but last year, was the first time it properly did it. I think we got up at something. I think we started on him about 8 o'clock and didn't get to the Comic Con until 11. So it did take. I think it took about because obviously it was both of us painting. There's a lot of tattoos on him, and it was our first. We've had one trial before that, um, so we obviously knew sort of what we were doing, but it did take us quite a bit of time to fix everything because you have to paint. We had to paint his entire body first,
Hmm.
and then had to do all the intricate details on him. But as we've got better, the time gets shorter and shorter and shorter. So that's
Now,
good.
I have to ask, did you have to tell them off when you guys were doing the process? Did you have to be like, stop laughing?
Yeah, with my brother, as good as he is a perfectionist. So he sometimes he'd watch us and be like, there needs to be more in there, and we just have to tell him to shut up because we're not finished. So you can talk about it when we're done, but until then, you need to be quiet. And obviously, he wants to see what we're doing, so he used to do this quite a lot. And obviously, I was painting the cards on his neck,
Yeah.
so he kept moving, and I had to tell him to stop moving all the time because obviously he needs to stand still so I can get it done. Otherwise, it would be a big black line up his neck, and that's not what he wants, is it?
Um, So I have to ask also, like, what technique did you guys use? Was that airbrushing that you did for that, or was it actual like paintbrushing that
It
was
was
done
all
for it?
paint, all of
Awesome.
it's paintbrushing. It's all freehand. We didn't use any stencils or anything. Freehand, just paintbrushes.
Wow, you guys are extremely talented in that, and I give you like clap and a half. Even though you can't really see that, so it's clap and a half. Ripping off Matt Pat there. Um, so I'm gonna get sued. Well done. Um, well done, you guys. You did an amazing job, and we'll see what we can do to splice those images in, guys. Or you can easily go to Blair's interview and click on one of his links, or Tegan's, or even Iona's now, and possibly see these pictures on their social media feeds. But before we disappear, before I do the last question with Iona and get her to do the Passover, I'm going to say to you guys, don't forget to check out iGameOnline.net, where you can catch up with all the latest shows that I do myself, or you can do the TV podcast, or the TV drop, I should say, or the weekly podcast with myself, Dark Lee, Wispa, Zelly, Honeyjade, and Georgia Kitty, and multiple other people. Also, don't forget to check out our cosplay section, which is NEUK, which is also easily found on our site, where you can catch up with Alphabet, Kobe Kicks, and Little Rascal. Other than that, I've been Jai452. She's been Tegan, and my last question to you before the Passover, Tegan, is what advice would you give anybody who is looking to cosplay but is a little unsure where to start?
If you're unsure where to start, my best advice is go with your favourite. Go with whoever you feel most comfortable with, whoever you know best. And you don't have to do it like they do it. You can take their idea and you can make it your own. Um, with my first cosplay, I was obviously really nervous. So what I did was I just went with the person I knew best, and then I just took her colours, black and red, and I just did what I could with that. Um,
Exactly.
so I wouldn't worry about it. Don't, just have fun about it.
Exactly. So before we do the Passover now, I just want to say, guys, if you have any questions for myself or Iona, there is a comment section down below. So don't forget to leave us a comment. Either myself or Iona will do our best to try and answer them. Uh, Give us a good thumbs up because we like our thumbs. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more cosplay interviews, more gameplay, whatever it is I'm doing, feel free, comment and subscribe, But lastly, Iona, where can we get a hold of you if we have any further questions that we maybe just want to ask you personally?
The best place to get hold of me is in fact just Instagram.
Hmm.
My Instagram is Iona_Flucker. This is in fact my private Instagram, so you'll get a lot of selfies as well. But that's where I post all of my cosplay stuff. So, and if you've got any questions, you can just message me on there, and I'll answer anybody.
Awesome. So there you go, guys. Don't forget if you didn't catch that there, Iona's link to her Instagram will be down in the description of this video. So please go along and support her there. And equally, don't forget to go along and check out Blair and Tegan's interviews and catch up with them as well as everybody else that I've interviewed about cosplay. So I've been Jai452. She's been Iona, and this has been Inside Cosplay, and we'll be back with another one really soon. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.